Your research has found that American consumers could lose between $46 and $78 billion if these new tariffs on imports to the U.S. are implemented. And just set the scene for us. What industries would be hit hardest potentially?
Well, Katie, it's nice to be with you. The study that you referenced is one that we released just last week, and it was a very limited study. It looked at 6 categories of goods that you would find in virtually every household in America. Footwear and apparel and household appliances and a number of others, just to give a sense of what would happen even on that limited set of imported goods. And the findings were very, very dramatic, as you would expect, because we import many of those from countries outside the United States. And our estimates were that these prices would increase sufficiently that customers would lose up to $80 billion of annual spending power. There have been other studies out there that this would cost between $2,500 and as much as $7,000 per household per year. So very, very significant consequences if the president-elect goes through with the kinds of things he said about increasing a mandatory tariff on all imported goods 10%, raising imported goods on China tariffs as much as 60%.
Right.
So really dramatic consequences for American households.
And you think about the CEOs of a lot of these companies, a lot of them were around in 2016, in 2018. Is there a roadmap that some of these affected industries, the C-suite, has for this potential tariff wave?
Yeah, Katie, I think one thing we have to remember is that this is a dynamic environment already, and it's been a very dynamic environment for the last decade. So as the economy in China has evolved over the last 15 to 25 years, their consumers have moved into the middle class, labor costs have increased. Retailers and other importers were already working dramatically to move their supply chains out of China because of increased labor costs and find other markets to produce those goods for import into other countries like the U.S. So retailers and other importers have not been standing still. That was a process ongoing even before the 2018 round of tariffs imposed by the last Trump administration. The Biden administration not only didn't reduce any of those tariffs in the last 4 years, they increased tariffs on almost 20 categories of goods. So this is something we're all dealing with. You add in the pandemic, supply chain, inflation, very dynamic environment. Retailers are always looking for ways to diversify their supply chain and bring better value to customers.
Matthew, I have less than a minute left with you here, but I'm curious about what recent history tells us about how these tariffs typically trickle through to the U.S. consumer. You think about importers paying these higher prices. Do they typically pass them on?
Absolutely. I mean, a tariff is a tax on the importer, which get passed on to the end users, the consumers, or the price of the input good that's being produced here in the United States. So we know in this environment with high inflation, with consumers focused on value and price, retailers and others won't have any choice but to pass on those cost increases and raise prices. That's going to be inflationary. It's going to be regressive. It's going to hurt families making under $50,000 a year. It'll make us less competitive, and it'll slow our economy's growth.